Hey guys, so good morning. Today is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to because, see, you're really used to me teaching you something that has already been created. And what we want to do today is a little different because I want to teach you how to create for yourself. And for those of you who say, I'm not quite there yet, I'm not quite ready, you may not be. But understanding why things work really allows you to utilize them better. So even if you say, well, Jabron, I'm just not quite ready to design my own scripts. I'm not quite ready to create my own scripts for my business. My answer to you would be, that's okay. You may not be ready, but understanding how something works really allows us to get a deeper meaning for what that thing does. And so today I'm going to be breaking down how you can create your own scripts in a very systematic way. And you see, a lot of the time we create scripts and we start with thinking about the actual call itself. We start with, okay, well, I'm going to say hello and then I'm going to do this and this and this. And that's just not how scripts are created. There's an intention, there's a purpose behind the scripts. So you should have the handout. If you don't, you can find a link to download it here in the YouTube in the comments and or in the description. And if you're live in person, your RSP should be able to provide you with a copy of this handout. So let's go ahead and get started. So systematically creating scripts that work. Notice that I say that work. Why? Because I can go online. I can find all sorts of scripts. I can find all sorts of things that say that they work. But the reality is they don't really work. And there's a few elements that go into a script. Now, understand that this is to draft a very basic script. There may be other things that you add into the script, such as value propositions. However, we're going to be focusing on how to create your line of questioning when it comes to scripts. So, step one, you want to start with your end goal in mind. You see, too many people start, like I said, with the beginning. Well, how do I open up the script? And if you're doing that, your script will never be fully effective. We want to start with the end goal in mind. What is it looking that we're to achieve? What are we looking to achieve by the end of the phone call? And if you're uncertain and you're going, well, I'm not really sure what I'm looking to achieve, then you want to take a step back and say, what is the purpose of this script? What am I trying to get out of this script? Every single time we make a phone call with a script, there's a purpose for that call. So we want to decide, what is the purpose for this call? Why is the reason that I'm calling? And once you do that, you should target one specific outcome. You see, too many times when we create scripts, we say, well, the outcome is I want to collect their contact information and I want to make sure that they come on an appointment and I want to make sure that I send them an item of value. And that's all great, but we want to have one goal in mind. Is it the contact information? Is it the appointment? And the contact information is a nice secondary? Is it that you just want to be able to get in contact with them to set up a secondary phone call? There's always different types of end goals. You need to define which one it is that you're shooting for. If you're not sure what your end goal is, then you really need to stop and figure that out. Don't even begin to create a script. Don't just say, well, I'm cold calling. Let me create a script to cold call expireds. Well, what do you plan to do with those expireds? If you don't know what you're going to do, then having a script for expireds doesn't really work. So you got to set that goal. You'll see on there it says, do not draft any other part of the script until this is 100% completed, or you'll find that the script comes off very sales like and is going to be ineffective. Because if you don't know what your end goal is, when we get down to step 4, which is actually probing questions, your questions are not going to be in line with the end goal of the script. And so you'll start asking questions that really take you off the rails. They get you into another place. You go into Venus and Neptune, as Jordan Belfort says, and you don't want to do that. So we always start with our purpose in mind first. We start for the reason why this script exists. It can't, not the reason that, oh, it's a reason for expireds or that I'm going to target a neighborhood. No. It's the end goal that's the reason. not the actual script. So once you have that end goal in mind, now you can start to actually draft your script. And what you want to do is you want to start with drafting your opening line. And don't be afraid if you have lots of scripts that all have the same opening line. That's actually a really good thing. That means that that opening line is going to be well practiced. Now, you can change your opening line, but there's a couple of elements that you want to make sure that you have in there. So, one, always draft the person's name into the script itself. Don't ever just say hello. Make sure that you use someone's name. It has a very different psychological effect. You see, they say that about 40% of our total attention goes into listening for our name. So when you use someone's name, you immediately start to grab their attention. That doesn't mean that you're going to keep them on the phone for a long time. It means that now you've got a split second to do the next part. So the next part is an opening line. And an opening line is really a statement, and you have to use tonality to convert it into a three-tier question. And there's a science behind this. We want to get the person on the other end of the line going, yes, 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 mentally. It's not about them actually saying yes. It's about them repeating that word yes in their own brain mentally. So I've got a couple examples here. The most common one is the one that we use often. This is John Doe with White Picket Realty in Houston, Texas. Notice how I say all three of those with the inflection. This is John Doe from the open house Sunday on 123 Main Street. And you want to practice your opening line multiple times. And when I say multiple times, maybe even 100, in secret in your office when nobody's looking, make sure that you're practicing that opening line because it needs to roll off of the tongue in a very rhythmic like cadence. When I'm saying the opening line, I should be able to clap to it like this. Think about it. This is John Doe from the open house Sunday on 123 Main Street. And that's very rhythmic. There's a cadence to it. And the reason that we do that is humans are very finely tuned to rhythm, to beat, and to music. And when we start to hear that, it really draws us in. It has almost a hypnotic effect on our brain. So we want to make sure that it rolls off. And one little word can change everything. Example, if I said, this is John Doe from the open house on Sunday on 123 Main Street. Now I've got a problem. Because it doesn't go rhythmically. It doesn't roll off my tongue smoothly. This is John Doe from the open house Sunday on 123 Main Street is a lot different than this is John Doe from the open house on Sunday on 123 Main Street. Those are the little things that you want to look for. Those single words that are throwing off your cadence, that are not allowing you to say what it is that you really want to say. Now, moving forward from there, once you have your opening, and yes, your opening is very important. Now we're going to design your hook. And see what a hook is, it's a statement that you assert on the caller where you both share a commonality. We want to hook them into staying on the phone with us. We don't want them to immediately jump off the phone. So we must find a generic common ground with the hook. This is something that's going to apply to everyone on that list. And in order for you to come up with the hook, you're going to have to think, who is it that I'm calling? So, for example, if you're calling an open house, a common generic common ground for you to hit would be, you came to my open house. Or we met at X location. If you met them at a restaurant somewhere, or you met them at the mall and now you're giving them a call back, you want to be able to connect with that person. We met at X location. If it's a referral, your friend gave me your information. That's a common ground. And better than your friend, it would be John Smith gave me your information, because now we can really connect together through that commonality of John Smith. Or if you're just targeting a neighborhood in general, hey, we own in the same area. Now, you wouldn't use both words there. It's we both own houses in the same area, or we both live in the same area, or we both live in the same neighborhood, or we both live on the same street even. We want to find whatever common ground that it is we can find with the person on the other end of the line. And we want to make it as generic as possible so that we're not constantly changing our hook. Now, once that hook is accepted, you have to state your intention and ask for permission. So you have to say, the reason for my call is, I don't want to take up a lot of your time. The reason for my call is, Hey, look, this will only take me a few minutes. The reason for my call is you want to find a way to ask for permission for their time and then state your intention. And then say, do you have a few? Do you have a minute? Do you have time right now? Is now a good time? Because when you do that, they're giving you permission to be on the phone with them. And the moment that they give you permission to be on the phone with them, they're no longer rushing to get off the phone with you. And you no longer have that pressure of, oh my God, they're going to hang up on me at any moment. Now you have permission. Now you can relax. Now you can take it easy. Now you can get into the conversation. So, what you want to say is things like, I was looking to do this and thought that you could help. So, the next part of the hook is just that. We want to ask for permission and then we want to ask for a favor. There's a psychological response when you're asking someone for a favor. When someone does something nice for you, they feel good about themselves. So, we want to ask it in the form of a favor. I was hoping you could help me. I was looking to do this and thought you could help. Or do you think you could? And it could be anything. Do you think you could answer a series of questions for me? Do you think that you could provide me with some feedback on the showing? I was hoping that you could help me get your contact information. I was hoping that you could provide me with your email address. That's a very different way than saying, give me your email address, because it's coming out in the form of a favor. Now, after we do that, we want to start to design a series of questions that are going to probe to qualify the lead. And that's what we have here. And we always start with the least invasive questions first. It has nothing to do with the importance of the question, it has to do with cracking that shell open. So you want to consider that human beings, we like to really keep ourselves shelled up. And when someone comes at us, especially a salesperson on the phone, we close that shell completely. And as we ask questions, we can either start to open that shell or those boom, sometimes questions are too invasive and that shell closes back up. So we want to think of the first questions that any stranger would be willing to share with anybody. And if it's something that is too personal or too private right off the bat, that shell is going to close on you. So don't allow that to happen to you. And then what you want to do is you want to have the questions build on the information that you've already previously received that allow you to go deeper and deeper with slightly more invasive questions. So a really, really good example is if you're talking to a seller, you would say, well, what are you looking to get for the property? Now, this is assuming that we already know they want to sell. We've already been in a little bit of a conversation. So this is a non-invasive question. What are you looking to get for the property? And they can either give me an answer or not. Now, if they give me an answer, my next question would be, oh, is that what you owe on the mortgage? That's a very different way of saying, what do you owe on your mortgage? But I'm leading it up with a less invasive question. The shell has already been cracked. I can now extract that information on what someone owes on their mortgage by asking the right questions. So you always want to think to yourself, is my question leading to the next question that I can utilize in my advantage? Now, a couple of tips and tricks. You want to utilize presumptive statements in your advantage when you're doing this questioning. So a presumptive statement is any time that you assume something about the person on the other end. So an example here is after asking them if they like the neighborhood and they express doubt that, no, I like the neighborhood, but it's not the greatest. There's other better neighborhoods out there. You might say something, oh, so you must be thinking about moving. Now, I'm making an assumption. I'm presuming that they're thinking about moving. I'm putting them in a situation where they're going to say, oh, well, no, I haven't thought about moving. Or, well, actually, yes, I have considered moving. So utilize those presumptive statements in your advantage. Now, the other thing that you want to make sure that you're utilizing are two-dimensional questions. Not one-dimensional. One-dimensional questions are anything that can be answered primarily with a yes or a no, or a very, very short prepared statement that people have already thought about in their head. A two-dimensional question, on the other hand, is a question that is stacked with two different parts to it. So there's a first part and there's a second part, but they're going together. And I'll give you the example here. It's, what is your satisfaction with your current realtor? You see, that question assumes that they have a realtor, and it also assumes that they have a level of satisfaction with that realtor. So that's very different than saying, do you have a realtor? Because do you have a realtor is easy for them to say, yes, I do, even if it's not true. But when you ask a two-dimensional question, what is your satisfaction with your current realtor? It causes them to have to dig deep in their brain and go, do I have a current realtor? And am I satisfied with that realtor? And it makes it very hard to lie. Because if I lie about, yes, I have a realtor, now I have to create an entirely separate lie regarding my satisfaction. So you want to think always, is this question two-dimensional or is it one-dimensional? And if you're asking only one-dimensional questions, start to utilize that two-dimensional question in your advantage. And don't be afraid to put in layers on your questions that allow you to get off the call early if that person is not qualified. That's the point of putting these qualifying questions into a script. The reality is, we could probably, once we have someone hooked and on the phone, get them to the end point if that's what we want. But if we realize in the in between, they're not qualified, this person doesn't own a property to sell, this person doesn't have a property to sell, or whatever it is that you're looking to achieve with your script, then it's okay to get off the phone. We don't necessarily have to get to the end just for the sake of getting to the end. Now, the last thing that you want to make sure is that you are constantly practicing and refining your script. You want to make sure when you're refining that you didn't use words that are tongue twisters, things that are difficult to say that aren't going to roll off the top of your tongue when you're talking to people. So if you find yourself practicing and you're kind of getting stuck on a word, change it, change the phrasing. And make sure that all of the words make sense and that they're necessary. Don't have unnecessary words there. Eliminate all that fluff in the script and really stick to the essentials that are going to be easy for you to follow. The next thing you want to practice is keeping tonality fluid in your script. So you want to think, in my script, when am I sounding excited? When am I sounding concerned? Ooh, I don't know. That doesn't seem like a good idea. Oh, wow, your neighbors had a big old party a week ago. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a very good neighborhood. You want to be thinking, when am I using these different tonalities in my script? When am I being stern with them? Well, listen, that doesn't sound very good. There are times that you're going to use all of these different tonalities. You just have to make sure that they're working correctly in your script. And then what you want to do is you want to practice your script with someone who's not familiar with it at least 10 times before even going live. And you want to constantly be adjusting the phrasing, the tonality, the questions. And when I say phrasing, moving the words around, kind of like earlier when we looked at the on in between that was throwing everything off. And make sure that you're not overusing words. So you're not saying on again, then on again, or then and again, then and again. Those kinds of repetition really throw people off because it makes them think, why is that being repeated? So you want to make sure that your phrasing is very smooth, that you're using very diverse word choices. And if something doesn't seem to be working when you're practicing, don't be afraid to remove it or replace it. Don't be married to your script just because you spent a lot of time putting it together. An effective script may take you a really long time to finally get mastered and get perfect, but change it constantly, because if it's not working, there's no point. It doesn't matter how long you put into it. There's no reason to continue using that script. And then you want to adjust your questions. So as you become more comfortable with your script and you start to be able to guide that conversation forward, you want to adjust your questions and maybe pick and choose new and different questions that will more easily guide you there. Maybe you're asking too invasive of a question up front and you need to move that to the back end and add a more simple question on the front end. Those are all things that you want to be thinking about. And when you go through our prepared scripts, you're going to find that they utilize all of these elements. And that's why it's important, even if you're not ready in the current moment to start writing your own scripts, knowing how the script works, knowing the engineering behind it, the background of how those scripts were created will allow you to more effectively use those in your business. So thanks so much, guys. I hope that you can come up with some amazing scripts utilizing this template. Have a good one. We'll